To our health event that we're going to have every single fourth week of the month. Okay. Healthy habits nutrition is today's topic, and we're glad to have everyone here. Please do invite other people if you find this informative and helpful for your life. Bring some other folks, and certainly pass on the information. I'd just like to begin us with a prayer. Dear God in heaven, we thank you so much that you care about us enough to give us guidelines in your word about health, but also to give us people that know more than we do, that can give us advice and help us in our lives. You're an amazing God that provides very well for us. Please be with us today. Be with the speaker as he divides nutrition into a very small amount of time. Help him to get everything in that he needs to, and help us not to be overwhelmed, but to understand and be able to use it in our lives. And as we go forward, be with us, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. Our speaker who will be coming up in a moment is Dr. Ardell Grosby. He's just moved here from Kingsport, Tennessee, and he's now working at Davis Memorial. And he has good experience, and they're working on his microphone right now. So, but he'll be up here just. All right. Welcome.
My fault.
Dr. Grosby.
Thank you. All right. Hi. Everyone hear me okay? Is that too loud? Maybe a bit loud. Well, let's see. Turn that on. All right. Well, thank you, John, for that brief introduction. Always makes me nervous when I get introduced because I'm like, I don't know if I really need to be introduced. I'm Dr. Grosby. I'm one of the hospital doctors that just started over at Davis Memorial. I've been doing this hospital or this doctoring thing for a little over 10 years. But I still get people look at me and say, are you old enough to be my doctor? Right? I'm a lot older than I look. So with that said, we're going to start this series of meetings, okay? But the goal is to keep it at just an hour, all right? We're talking about health, and there's people who just take one little aspect of health and they do their bachelor's and their master's and their doctorate and their second doctorate. There's volumes and volumes of all this health stuff with every single component. We can talk about any of the stuff that I put on here for hours and hours and barely, it'll be like a drop in the bucket. So my goal here with these presentations is to just give, enough to actually just get people started and to just actually just start really thinking about their health in lots of different aspects. But before we start, I'd like to say a word of prayer that God will lead us through this process. He ultimately is the source of all the healing. So let's pray real quick. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for the people who are here. Thank you for being the God who cares about us, not just in a spiritual way, but also in a physical way and in all the health aspects, not just the spiritual. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity we have today to explore a little bit of that, and we just pray that your Holy Spirit will be here to guide as I present the topics and as people here ask the questions that they feel that they need to. And Heavenly Father, I pray that you will guide us to a closer relationship with you through these health talks. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right. So, what is health? It's audience participation. You can stop me anytime. Position of our bodies. That's condition. Condition of our bodies. Yes. Yes. Good condition is health and bad condition is not. Right. Okay. That's an awesome definition. Anyone else want to venture an idea for what they think health is?
We control our bodies and live up to what we know.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely another aspect of health. Health is a really complicated thing. It actually comes from an old English word that is actually related to an old Germanic word. And the Germanic word actually means whole. Okay, so health means being whole or complete. So if you think of spiritual health, if you're lacking something spiritually, you're not complete, you're not spiritually healthy. It's the same way with physical health. It's because you're lacking something. It's not necessarily that you get too much of something as much as you're not complete. There's stuff in your life physically that's lacking, and that's what's causing the unhealthy to happen. Lots of bad advice out there. Lots of perspectives on health. If you are what you eat, I'd rather be thin like a French fry than round like a head of lettuce. Okay, lots of different advice, good advice, bad advice. What fits your busy schedule better, exercising 1 hour a day or being dead 24 hours a day? Okay, so let's talk about this health thing. All right, here are some statistics from the CDC. This is the most recent from 2021. Probably the worst year of my doctoring career, because that was when the most people died of COVID, of any of the years since COVID happened. In 2022, they're still working the statistics, so this is the most recent. But the top 10 killers in the United States, the first one is heart disease. It's been the top killer in this country since, I think, 1912 or 1910 or something like that. It has been number one for over 100 years. Second one, cancer has been the top killer. Yes, sir?
I understand that is the highest rate of death there in this area.
Yes. Yep.
More heart disease here
Yep.
than anywhere else in America.
Absolutely. Yep. Actually, it's interesting, now that you've started me on that tangent, okay? The area of the United States that we consider the Bible Belt has the most lifestyle health problems of any part of the country. The part of the country that claims to know the God that created our bodies and that wants us to be healthy is also the part of the country with the most heart disease, the most cancer, the most COPD, the most diabetes, the most pretty much Alzheimer's. Like you look at all the major killers, liver failure, kidney problems, is that whole quote unquote Bible Belt area. Okay, so anyway, yeah, so that's that little blurb there. So the second one is cancer, and those two, the heart disease and cancer, in 2021 killed almost 40% of the people who died in this country. About almost 40% died from those two medical problems alone. Okay, and then COVID happened, and there was about 400,000 people that died of COVID, which there's some question as to how they got those statistics, but anyway, it is what it is, all right? Heart disease, 695,547 people died of heart disease in 2021 alone. 605,213 people died of cancer in just that 1 year alone, on top of COVID. All right. For perspective, 9/11, 2001, I remember that day. I remember what I was doing and where I was at when I found out that happened. Yep. Every single person remembers that. 2,996 people lost their lives in one day. 4 airplanes crashed. And within less than 12 hours, the entire country became laser focused. What are we going to do about this? Right? Within about a month or so, Congress and our government passed one of the most restrictive and rights limiting pieces of legislation, the Patriot Act, of any legislation ever since the beginning of this country, got passed, in a split second, pretty much, in terms of how quickly Congress moves. Okay, we spent billions and billions of dollars. We went to war with at least 2 different countries, Afghanistan, Iraq. We were there for decades, right? Because of one thing that happened. In the United States, heart disease and cancer killed 1.3 million plus people in 1 year, or about 3,564 people per day. Every day. Imagine what would have happened if this happened every single day in this country. And one of those airliners that crashed, it carries about 250 people. So that's about 14 of these crashing every day, 365 days. These 2 medical problems. There's lots of other medical problems out there, but these 2 alone would be like 14 of these crashing every single day in 1 year alone. Huge, huge problem. Most people think, it's just what happens. We just go, we do our doctoring thing, we do our, when we get a heart attack, we get, the stents and all that stuff. Okay, nobody seems to be like, this is a really big problem. All right, something has to be done. We are being destroyed. The Bible says something very interesting in Hosea 4 verse 6. God says something very interesting. He says, my people are destroyed because of lack of knowledge. He doesn't say my people are being destroyed because the enemies, the terrorists are attacking, or the Philistines are attacking, or whatever, the enemies they had in that day. He doesn't say my people are being destroyed because of famines or earthquakes or natural disasters. He doesn't say my people are being destroyed because of their genetics. He said my people are being destroyed because they don't know. They don't know. And he also says in 1 Corinthians 10 verse 31, this is Paul speaking. He says, therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. I find that very interesting because when most people think about glorifying God, they think about going to church, praise music, evangelism, going door to door, praying with people. Why didn't Paul say whether you go to church or you sing in the band, do all to the glory of God? Why didn't he say whether you pray with people in prison or, whatever else we think of glorifying God? No, instead of all of those other things that we think about glorifying God, he actually picked eating and drinking. That's interesting. At least from a doctor's perspective, I'm like, of all the things that you could think of as examples for glorifying God, you pick the stuff that we put in our mouths. Okay? God has a lot more interest in our physical well-being than we realize. 1 Corinthians 3 verse 16, do you not know that you are the temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwells in you? Temple is where God lives. If I had a really good friend that I loved and trusted, when he went on vacation, I don't go in there and trash the place that he lives in. Right? Your body. It doesn't say your soul or your spirit or whatever is the temple of God. It says your body, your physical body, the stuff that you can pinch and, feels pain and cold and heat. That is where God lives. Here's another thought. That's also where you live. Right? If you don't take care of your body, where are you going to live? You live in your body too. So what should I do? So this is kind of an intro, so it's going to take a little bit more. I'm hoping that my next presentations aren't going to be this long because I kind of have to introduce it for the first meeting. How about a new start? You know, how about if I had a chance to kind of start stuff different? Well, I'm glad you thought that because I think that too. Here, look at that. It's an acronym. N is for nutrition, E is exercise, they'll use for water. All of these are components that actually affect your health. S is sunlight. Sunlight. I thought that caused skin cancer. And there's lots of stuff we can talk about that with that. Temperance. Air is an old word that we don't really use anymore. Amazing word though. Air. Most people don't think of air when they. Yep. Rest and then trust. We're going to go through all of these different components. Like I said, like John said, the fourth Sunday of each month, we're just going to break down each of those little pieces bit by little bit. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is talk about nutrition in about 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah, I'm going to condense all of that into 10 minutes. All right, so there's 3 rules. Oh. Nutrition. I know a lot of people say, all right, wonder which diet he's going to tell us to do. It's the Atkins diet, really popular years and years ago, until the guy who actually started ended up dying from his own diet. The paleo diet is really popular right now. There's an ITG diet. You know what ITG stands for? It's the greatest. The person who designed that diet was conceited enough to actually call it It's the Greatest Diet. Okay? South Beach diet, which I don't hear about much anymore. I heard a lot of that. I went to medical school in Southern California, and there was a lot more of that South Beach stuff. Yeah. But it's not as popular all around the country. The HCG diet. Has anyone heard of the HCG diet? No? You know what HCG is? It's a hormone. It's a hormone that the placenta makes when a woman is pregnant. They actually inject a pregnancy hormone into people to help them lose weight. Wow. Yeah, I know there's crazy stuff out there. You know, there's a Nutrisystem diet, which, you know, if you have a TV, sooner or later you see an ad for it. There's Weight Watchers, which is actually one of the better diets. The Mediterranean diet has been seeing a lot of media attention recently. And there's probably hundreds of other diets. So how do I do this nutrition thing? I don't need to convince most of my patients when they ask me for advice that nutrition, you know, eating right is good for you. Okay, so I'm not going to present a whole bunch of stuff. You know, if anyone's interested in a whole bunch of data, you know, give me your email and I'll send you a whole bunch of studies. You'll have lots of fun with that. But yeah, there's so much stuff about why it's good for you, but most people know that. Most people know that if you eat horrible stuff, then it's not good for you, and most people know that if you eat good stuff, it's good for you, right? The problem with nutrition is not that it's good for me. The problem is how do I do it to where I don't burn out? You know, they're like, Doc, I don't want to be a rabbit and just eat salads all day, every single day. You know, I'm tired of that. Everyone else gets to eat their pie and their steak and potatoes and everything else, and I'm stuck there eating the same salad day after day. You know, I'll do it for 3 to 6 weeks and then I'm done. You know, that's what usually happens. How do I actually maintain that long term? So there's 3 rules. Here's the first rule. Eat more. Okay, this is the first rule is it's not a diet of restriction, it's a diet that's asking you to actually put more into your system. Okay, but you got to put more of this. Okay? I'm not going to start talking about all the stuff you got to cut out, because really the biggest problem with nutrition that we have is not that people aren't cutting stuff out. The biggest problem is that they're not actually putting the good stuff in. Okay, and that's where you start going wrong, is you start cutting out and cutting out and cutting out. And yeah, you might lose the weight and stuff, but the nutrition part of it actually doesn't get fixed, and then you start having problems. Okay, so you have to eat more. Okay, think of it as a way to do, as it not being restrictive. So here's some benefits. Like I said, I can talk about this for hours. In medical school, we actually have what we call journal club, where you have article after article, and you spend like 4 hours just going over like 2 or 3 or 4 articles and just analyzing it to, all the crazy different things that are in it. But heart disease. They did this study called the Lion Diet Heart Study. And this was a study on people who actually had heart attacks. They had heart attacks, and after they had their heart attacks, they said, all right, half of you, just keep taking your medicine like you're supposed to. Take your heart medicine. Do what you normally do otherwise. The other group, they said, yep, take your heart medicine and all that, but you got to eat different. Okay, you got to eat lots of fruit, lots of vegetables. You got to cut out your red meat. You got to do all these things. And they followed them for 5 years. And the people who actually ate a whole bunch of vegetables and fruit, in that 5 years, they were 73% less likely to have another heart attack. 70% less likely in the next 5 years of actually dying. And this all-cause mortality means from anything, not just dying from a heart attack, dying from a stroke, dying from diabetes, dying from cancer. They had a 70% less likelihood, less chance of dying 5 years after they started eating fruits and vegetables. This lifestyle heart trial has this fancy word, this regression of atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is just that cholesterol gunk buildup in your blood vessels, in your heart blood vessels. They found that these people who had heart attacks, once you start eating a bunch of vegetables and fruit, it actually started dissolving all that cholesterol gunk in your blood vessels. There is no medication, even the cholesterol medicine, that they tout that you're supposed to take after you have a heart attack or a stroke and stuff like that. It doesn't do that. If you really ask your doctor, and they've actually read the research, it doesn't actually make the cholesterol buildup go away. What it does is it helps prevent the next one from happening. So it prevents the buildup of more. It doesn't actually clean out your blood vessels. Okay. And it only does that in about 1 in 83 patients. Okay, so if there are 80-something patients in this room and I gave each of you a cholesterol medicine, 82 of you, it won't do anything. It'll only help 1 of you. If I told you that, yeah, you've got a 1 in 82 chance, 83 chance that this cholesterol is going to help prevent a heart attack, okay, most people would say, yeah, that's not very good chances. Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask you something?
Yep.
How bad is sugar with cancer?
Oh, yeah, we can definitely talk about worse than anything else that we know of. Sugar is probably the biggest driving force for increased risk for cancer. Okay, so what I hadn't said in the introduction was we're going to have a little question and answer period. So it's stuff like that, because like I said, I can't cover everything in 20 or 25 minutes. So if you have questions, there's that question and answer period that, there's a bunch of stuff I don't know, but whatever I know, I'm happy to talk about. But here's the thing with vegetables and fruit, and they looked at it with cancer, breast cancer. If you had breast cancer and you had remission, there's always a chance it comes back, right? If you actually ate a bunch of vegetables and fruit, you had like a 30% less chance that it's going to come back. Okay. About a 30% less chance of dying from cancer happening again. So even if it came back, you have 30% less chance of actually dying even if it came back compared to someone who didn't eat a whole bunch of vegetables and fruit. And here's this really interesting one. Colorectal cancer, so colon cancer. You decrease your chance of getting colon cancer by about 20% just by eating 6 ounces of grains, whole grains a day. That's like that. Okay, you cut your risk. So there's amazing stuff, and like I said, there's so many studies out there. There's studies on blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes. It helps prevent diabetes, and if you have diabetes, it helps control your diabetes better. So it's all of these things, and it's all the same stuff. Show me a pill that will cover all of these medical problems and any other medical problem out there. Okay, there's studies that show that it helps dementia. Studies that shows that it helps anxiety and depression. The same vegetables and fruit that helps heart disease and cancer and blood pressure and cholesterol and diabetes and liver problems and kidney problems also helps your mood. You show me one pill that does that or anything close to that. There's nothing. No side effects. People die of aspirin. People die from Tylenol. And you can buy that over the counter. You don't need a prescription. Every single medication, they'll have at least 20 different side effects. I've never heard of someone dying from eating too many oranges or eating too many carrots or eating too many, I had 500 cups of spinach and then, ended up needing to have my stomach pumped. There's no side effects. Zero. Okay? And that's the amazing thing, is it does so many good things and it has no side effects. So why does this help by eating more vegetables and fruit? So here's the idea. The way your brain knows that you're full, well, there's lots of different ways, but the main way your brain knows that you're full is if your stomach fills up, because your stomach has actual stretch sensors. Okay. When your stomach gets full, it starts to stretch, and once it stretches past a certain point, it tells your brain, all right, you're getting full. You keep eating. No, you're really getting full. Then you keep eating, then you finally throw up, and then your stomach says, see, I told you you were full. All right, so it's that stretch mechanism that happens. Okay, here's the thing. 400 calories of oil, that's about 4 tablespoons. Okay, it's not going to stretch your stomach one little bit. It just sits right there at the very bottom. 400 calories of beef, yeah, it's maybe what, a quarter of the stomach? That's not going to make your stomach tell your brain that you're full, because you haven't even filled it anywhere close to even halfway. 400 calories of vegetables can completely fill your stomach to where your stomach starts telling your brain, all right, it's maybe getting to the point where you need to stop eating. And you just got 400 calories. If you're needing to lose weight, okay, and still want to feel full, you got to eat the stuff that actually has a lot of bulk, but has just a tiny little bit of calories. Okay, that's what we mean by calorie density. Here's one large Big Mac meal. It's about 1,300 calories. I know people who could put one of those down in less than 5 minutes. If you play on your phone, you might stretch that out to 30 minutes, right, while eating. Okay. That you can get from Walmart. It's 25 calories and 2 cups of spinach. You'd have to eat 104 cups of spinach to get to 1,300 calories. There is no way anyone will come close in one meal to eating anywhere close to that much spinach before your stomach starts telling your brain, yeah, you got to quit or you're going to start puking your guts up. Okay, so that's the biggest thing. You've got to eat more of the stuff that takes up space, okay, that doesn't have a lot of calories. But then there's a second thing. There's something also called nutrient density, okay, and there's all these different vitamins, vitamin A, C, D, niacin, riboflavin. There's minerals, there's all the calcium and the copper, the iodine, and all of that stuff comes from plants. Okay, people are like, well, yeah, animals have that too. Well, yeah, the reason meat has that is because it came from the plants that the animals ate. Okay, the animals don't actually make any of this stuff. They get it from the plants. Okay, but then on top of that, there's these fancy things called phytochemicals, and there's a few hundred of them now that they've identified that are actually really helpful for your health. Things like alpha carotene, beta carotene. There's resveratrol has seen a lot of stuff in some of the news stuff, lycopene, I think that's in tomatoes. You know, there's all these different things that help with your health. And I think they have like at least 300 or 400 now that are officially documented. And they know that there's more. Okay. None of this, you can't get any of these phytochemicals in the pill. You can get the vitamins and some of the iron and the calcium and stuff. So you can get some of these and some of these in a pill. But there's all of these that you miss out on if you just go for a multivitamin. This one's a really interesting one. It's by Dr. Furman. It's called the Aggregate Nutrient Density Index. It's the ANDI index. And so what he did was he looked at all the different nutrients that the scientists had found out in each of the different foods. And they said, all right, we'll give 1,000 points to the foods that have the most nutrients, and we'll give 1 point to the foods that have the smallest amount of nutrients. All right. So there's cola. It's only got sugar, and sugar technically is a nutrient, so it gets 1 point. It doesn't really have anything else. Plus, the sugar's bad for you in other ways. You know, and it kind of goes up from there. So you've got, you know, good things to eat like cherries, you know, 55, green peas, 63, tofu, cucumbers. Look at that. Kale, watercress, collards. All those greens that our grandparents used to eat a whole lot of. And we wonder why they were so healthy even though they ate a lot of other things that we think was bad, was they actually ate a lot of other things that was really, really good. Okay, 1,000 points for a lot of these green leafy vegetables and stuff like that. And really with this, if you pull this up on Google or something like that, I tell people try to eat a whole lot more of stuff that's, you know, 40 points or higher. You know, just start there. Just say anything that's 40 points or higher, I'm just going to eat a bunch of, or 50 points or higher. Okay, just to start with, and you can, you know, go up from there. But there's so much as compared to, as compared to white bread, you know, that's 17 points. Okay. The interesting thing, because you want food that has low calories and you also want food that has lots of nutrients. The food that has the low calories and the food that has the high nutrients are the same food. It's almost like God packaged it that way. Huh. Here's an interesting verse, Genesis 1, verse 29. God said, "See, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it shall be for food." You know who he was talking to when he said that? Adam and Eve. Moses wrote Genesis. A lot of things happened in creation. Right? All the physics, all the chemistry, all those crazy things of building stuff out of nothing. But God said, Moses, I want you to only record certain things. But one of the things I want to make sure you record in this perfect world, brand new, not a single taint of sin in this world, perfect human beings, I want you to actually put a blurb on their diet. Of all the random things to put about creation, God tells Moses to write down what the perfect diet should be in a perfect world with perfect people. Science is backing this up more and more. that the closer you get to this, putting this into your body, the better your body seems to do. So I said there's 3 rules. Here's the other 2 real quick. All right. Eat the good stuff first. Try to aim to eat all the fruit and vegetables first. Okay, don't eat the food that's not as good and stuff. Eat until you're about, the rule of thumb is about 50% full. So you eat, whatever it is, your greens or your salads or, whatever it is, your fruit, until you feel like, yeah, I'm about half full. And then from there you eat whatever else you normally eat. Okay, so the goal is not to starve you. All right, the goal is not to say you can't eat the stuff that you enjoy. I just want you to try to eat the good stuff until you're about half full, and then the rest of your meal can be whatever you normally eat. The good thing about this is that you'll just naturally eat less of the stuff that has more calories. Okay, because you're already filled up with the good stuff, plus you also got a whole bunch of the nutrients. So that's a really good way to start to do things to where, you go to a church potluck and, you're not starving with all those pastries. Eat dessert. Okay, just try to get the good stuff in first. Okay, and that's the way to start moving forward. No one does anything perfectly from the get-go. If you can only do 25% of the good stuff before you go on to whatever else you normally eat, I'll take it. Okay, but kind of rule of thumb, try to go for about 50%. And then, like I said, you can go to whatever you normally eat next. And here's the 3rd rule of thumb. Try to stop eating when you feel about 80% full, 80, 90%. Just to that point where you're like, yeah, I can eat a little bit more, but that's when you need to stop, okay? Because I don't know about everyone, but I know personally that I've eaten until I'm like, yes, I'm full. 20, 30 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I ate too much. Has anyone else done that?
Oh, yeah.
You're like, yeah, I'm good. I ate a good meal. And then, like I said, 20 or 30 minutes later, you're tired, you're sleepy, you feel like you've stuffed yourself way too much. That's because there's a lag time. There's about 20 to 30 minute lag time from what happens here to what happens here. So if you stop at around 80 to 90%, you feel, yeah, I can eat just a little bit more. In about 20 minutes, you'll get to that 100% and you're like, oh, I feel full and I don't really feel tired and groggy and everything else, okay, because I didn't overshoot. All right, so those are the rules of thumb. Rule number 1, eat more, a lot more fruit, vegetables and fruit, and then try to eat the good stuff first. Try to go for 50%. And then rule 3, try to stop eating when you're about 80, 90% full. And if you start doing that, you'll start to actually see the benefits, and it's not going to be such a radical change that you feel completely miserable. Okay. And that's it. So we're going to have a little bit of a food sample. It's not a full meal, obviously, but it's just some ideas of different things that you can try. I think every single one of these things, the ingredients that we're going to use to make all of these different samples are not going to be anything super crazy, fancy. You won't need to go online to some weird special grocery store, pharmacy, whatever, to buy the ingredients. There'll be stuff that you can get from, Walmart and stuff. Okay. Yes, yeah, I'll do that after. Was Ray gonna talk about the thing or? Yes, I just So what we're gonna do next is the food sample, and usually the person who prepares it, they kind of talk about what they did. Okay, just so if you have questions or anything is.
I can help with that part.
Okay.
Yeah, I followed Becca's recipe.
Yeah, so it's not meant to be anything super complicated, but I just want people to have the opportunity to ask questions about the food sample.
Yeah, so
you have to count the oil and you have to count potatoes. Those are only a tiny little bit of something in here to get. But anyway, yeah, it doesn't take real long, but there's tons of veggies in here. There's garlic and celery and onion and carrots and potatoes and parsley and spinach. And then there's a little bit of zip to it. She has cayenne pepper. I usually don't use the black pepper, but some people like that. But anyway, it's and then the lentils cook up really fast. They're a legume that doesn't take very long to cook, 20 minutes or so. And she serves it with crusty bread, and you stick the bread in it. It's really a tasty meal. It fills you up. So it's real easy to prepare. We do it all in one pot.
Okay, go ahead and give them.
Olive oil in there, and sautees the garlic and onion, and then just once it's sauteed, just add the other stuff to one pot meal. That's totally a good way to go. So, our beautiful William Susan wants to serve you some samples.
I don't know if it should be online because it's being recorded for people.
What's that?
Is the program being recorded for people?
Well,
It should be online.
yeah, I don't know if it's.
And we have on the soup samples coming in just a moment. And Dr. Roscoe, did you want us to go ahead and do the drawing for the gift now? It was supposed to be during Q&A. You don't do that. Okay. Yeah, let me.
Something takes any questions? All right.
So this I guess Q&A. It's actually my favorite part because I don't get to do all the talking, and people actually get to ask stuff that they're interested in instead of having to hear someone talk about stuff they might not be interested in. Was that?
Carol gets the gift today.
Harold does.
Oh, wow. That looks kind of fancy. Oh, I want one of those. All right. Well, any questions? Any questions? It can be about the nutrition topic, or it could just be about other stuff. I'll do my best, but like I said, there's a bunch of stuff that I don't know, but I'm happy to. Yes, sir.
You know, water was mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Water is extremely important.
Oh, yeah.
I don't trust the water. I don't trust the bottled water.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the question is, should you filter the water you drink, or
Sure.
what do you think?
Well, every single one of those health topics, it's not black or white. It's almost in gradients. Okay, so it's one of those where, you know, it's like anything else in life. If you do 10% of the work, you get 10% of the benefit. Okay, do 50% of the work, don't expect 100% of the benefit. You should expect as much as how much you put in. But at the same time, if someone gives 40% effort, I'll take that over 10% any day. Okay, so that's the thing. If each of those components, there is so much more you can do in terms of things like water and nutrition, and exercise and all of that. There's so much you can do. And if that's something that you're willing to do and it's worth it to you, obviously the purer the water is, the better it is for you. Okay, the work you have to go through to do that, I don't want it to discourage people from actually drinking more water, because I'd rather they drank city water than Mountain Dew. Right? Or yeah. So it all depends on where you're at in terms of your health. Okay, my goal is to try to get people to move forward from wherever they're at. So if you're already someone who wants to filter their water and you hate city water and you're already real good at drinking the amount of water that you need to, Yeah, go for it. You know, get a distiller, get a filter, get what you need, but it does cost you a whole lot more in other ways, though. Yes, sir.
What are good waters?
What are good waters?
Yeah, Fiji, is that a good water? That's what I had.
So what I tell my patients is drink more water. Okay, we can go into all the nitpicky things, you know, is something that's actually spring water better than water that you get from reverse osmosis versus water that you get from distillation versus, you know, there's all these different ways. The biggest problem with most people in this country is not that they're drinking bad water, it's that they're not drinking enough water. That's really the biggest problem. So I you know, if you want to get super specific, there's lots more information out there. My goal is to just get people to actually drink more of this stuff. Okay. Once you get to that point, you can always go further, but start out actually drinking more water. And we're going to have a presentation and all of that too, and how to do it, and all of that, the benefits of the water as well. Good questions. Any other questions for me?
Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
if you're diabetic, how do you keep from your sugars spiking on you all the time? See, if you eat this,
Mm-hmm.
it'll go up high, and if you don't eat this, it'll go down low, and if you don't eat it all, it either goes high or low.
Yeah. So there's different, and it all depends on where you are with your diabetes. You know, there's diabetes where you need tons of insulin shots, you know, multiple shots that people have to give themselves every single day. And there's some diabetics, they only take one pill. Okay, so diabetes is not just one thing. There's lots of different categories for diabetes. One of the ways that eating lots of, especially vegetables, helps you with your diabetes. The problem with sugars when you eat and you're diabetic is your stomach and your intestines just suck up all that sugar that's in your food. Okay, just suck it up and dump it into your bloodstream. Okay, and if you have a pancreas that works fine and doesn't have diabetes, it keeps up with your gut. As your sugars go up, your pancreas just pumps out the insulin like it needs to, just follows that sugar perfectly to where your sugar just doesn't spike. Okay, it monitors your sugars every second of every single day, your pancreas does. Okay, compare that to people who check their sugars 4 times a day. Okay, every single second and adjusting for it every single second versus adjusting your insulin shots 4 times a day. You know, it's not even close. Okay, so you're going to have quite a bit of, you have to give yourself leeway and all of that. So one of the ways that you can actually help your sugar not spike so high is to eat foods that help absorb slower into your bloodstream. Okay, and the main way you do that is with foods that have fiber. Okay, because fiber acts kind of like a trap for all that sugar. Okay, so it takes longer for your gut to pull that sugar and dump it into your blood. Okay, so if you eat a whole bunch of, like, you know, kale and spinach and other stuff that has just tons and tons of fiber, it actually traps a lot of that sugar. So instead of your sugar shooting up because your body's just sucking that in from your gut, the gut has to work on that fiber and pull it apart and get at all those sugars, so you don't have that spike as much if you eat stuff that has lots of fiber. So that's one of the ways that you can do that as well. And, you know, fruit too has a bunch of fiber in it. So for most people, they won't spike as high even if they eat fruit, which has plenty of sugar. They don't spike as high as if they just had like a soda or something else that doesn't have any fiber in it. But yeah, there's lots of other things too with diabetes that goes into controlling your sugars. But what it also does is, if you have a lot of inflammation in your body, it makes your diabetes worse. The good thing about vegetables and fruit is it has stuff that fights inflammation. So that's another way too that it helps your diabetes, is by calming down that inflammation in your body. So, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Any other questions?
Now, Ardell, the fruit, the sugar from the fruit,
Mhm.
the complex sugar, now it's okay, or can we get too much complex sugar?
Yes.
We can get too much
Yeah.
complex sugar.
Well, it's so yes, you can always get too much complex sugar. The problem is you have to eat a bunch of fruit. Okay, so like I showed that picture with the Big Mac meal that was 1,300 calories. Okay, that's about 16 to 18 apples worth of calories. Okay, so God has actually packaged stuff to where you get sick before you can actually do too much. Okay, I don't know too many people who don't get sick before they get to eating 16 apples. Okay, you look at orange juice. An 8 ounce of orange juice is 3 to 4 oranges. Okay, if you took the time to peel each orange and eat it bit by little bit, like most people, they don't peel an orange and just shove it down their mouths, right? You break it apart and you eat 1 or 2 pieces at a time. Okay, you're putting that sugar in your system slower. It gives your body time to catch up with it. Okay, that's 3 to 4 oranges. Most people don't sit down and eat 3 to 4 oranges. You can chug an 8 ounce glass of orange juice in a second, right? So you just so all the effort and the time to kind of slow down the sugars getting into your system that God has packaged into an orange, where you actually have to take the time to peel it and slowly eat it. The manufacturing process has completely eliminated. Number one, they took out a bunch of the fiber, and number two, they concentrated all of that to where you can chug 8 ounces of orange juice in 2 to 5 seconds. Okay, so that's the part is when we start messing with the stuff that God created, we start to have more of the problems. So yeah, you can, and I've had, people had like psychiatric problems. They will drink like 6 gallons of water in a day and cause lots of problems, or they'll eat certain things and they'll just eat it and eat it and eat it, but that's more of a psychiatric problem. The people who actually you get sick before you can actually overdo stuff. Right. Okay, so that's the thing is as long as you actually eat till you start feeling full, and you eat the stuff the way God created it, it's really, really, really hard to overdo it or have the bad side effects from it.
I have a question about
Yes, ma'am.
fibromyalgia.
Yes.
What can we do with that?
Fibromyalgia is a really complicated medical problem. There's some doctors that don't actually believe that it exists. So we're still kind of in that.
It's still in the testing stage.
Well, there's certain medical problems that, there's a lot of medical problems that, for some of them, where it took like 50, 60, 100 years before most doctors even accepted it. The number one example that comes to mind is smoking. Okay. Most doctors prescribed smoking and thought that it was a good idea until the early 1900s. So for a few hundred years, doctors were saying, oh yeah, you have a medical problem, you need to smoke more. And it took decades before people started understanding, wait a second, what doctors were recommending was actually bad for you. Okay, so fibromyalgia is one of the newer medical problems, and it's really hard to treat, and the reason is we don't really know why. There's lots of theories on why, but it doesn't fit into, it's not like a heart attack or a stroke or cancer. Like it has a lot of different nuances, and we're seeing a lot more of the fibromyalgia that we'd never seen before. Yeah, and that's what I was actually going into is autoimmune diseases in general. The 1950s, 1960s, if someone had lupus and you were in a hospital with a bunch of medical students, the doctor called all the medical students over and said, oh, look, here's a patient with lupus. It's really rare. Probably most of you will never see this in your life, but here it is. Okay, now it's everywhere. Okay. Rheumatoid arthritis is exploded. Lupus is exploded. All the gut stuff, Crohn's disease, all these different weird allergies to peanuts and gluten and stuff like that. This is stuff that's just showing up in the last few decades that we didn't have for centuries.
But it's still, isn't it a lifestyle disease or what? I mean, they're kind of tracking it down that way,
Yep.
which brings you back to the
Yep.
way you eat.
Yep. So with autoimmune, what autoimmune diseases is your body attacking itself. So your immune system is like your military, okay? And it's supposed to protect you from invaders and bad stuff from the outside, but it's like your military turning on you, okay? And so it becomes really hard to treat because, number one, we don't know why the immune system is attacking certain things. You look at MS, that's autoimmune, it's attacking the brain. You look at lupus, and lupus can affect any organ system. Okay, you look at Crohn's disease, which affects only certain parts of your gut. You look at ulcerative colitis, all these different autoimmune things, and they all attack different things, but it's still a problem with your immune system. And now we're starting to find out that a lot of it is because there's so much inflammation in the body that your immune system is starting to get confused with what is good and what is bad. Okay, and a lot of the inflammation happens because of what we eat. And they think that the biggest culprit is actually the sugar. Sugar is the number one cause of inflammation in the human body. Yes, sir?
Are there good spices and bad spices? Good herbs, bad herbs?
Well, if it's poisonous, it's probably bad. I mean.
I have questions about onions.
Yes. That's. I think that's the elixir of youth that comes in the onions. No, I'm just kidding. So there's so many different studies on different herbs and spices. I think turmeric is one of the big ones. Ginger. There's a lot of these. A lot of these studies are done in Eastern countries like China and India and stuff where they have a lot of the traditionalist medicine. And so they've done a lot more of that. The Western medicine for a really long time thought that all these herbs and spices were just, voodoo and snake oil and all of that. So there's not as much research in Western medicine with all the spices and herbs and stuff, but they're finding a lot of different benefits. Onion, garlic, ginger, turmeric, oregano. There's all of these different things that lots of different cultures have used to make their food taste better that actually has health benefits. So yeah, there's benefit to making your food taste good using herbs and spices and not just filling it with, sugar and salt. Good questions.
There are some people sometimes have died from taking pepper challenges. That's more literally. It's kind of crazy.
Yes.
How much pepper? Is there any restraints on some of this stuff?
That's a really good question, and that's actually something that a lot of different patients have asked me through the years is where do you draw the line? And that's really the question is where do you draw the line? And the tricky part about that is that each person's different. Okay, there's some people, I know some people that I've had friends from India, and they can eat stuff that is so hot that I take a spoonful of this stuff and my mouth it's on fire, and they eat it like platefuls, yeah, like just bowls and bowls of this stuff, and they're perfectly fine.
That's like me. I can make, well, I used to before I got allergic to tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
I used to make salsa.
Yep.
And I would use ghost peppers
Mm-hmm.
in it, and I would make it. I mean, people, like you said, take a bite and they're off running,
Right.
looking for something to calm it down. And to me, it was nothing.
Yeah.
But I grew up eating that stuff
Mhm.
too.
Yep. So the good Lord has made each of us a little bit different too. And there's some people, like, I can't eat a bunch of watermelon. It gives my stomach problems, right? But other people can eat it like there's no tomorrow and be perfectly fine. You know, watermelon's not necessarily an evil thing. You know, I can eat it, but I can't eat as much as other people can before it starts giving my stomach trouble. Okay, so there's different people that have issues and problems with different things, and what I tell my patients is, you know, one of the big things about health is learning to listen to your own body, because your body will actually tell you if you're doing something wrong if you actually listen to it. You know, you have to be in tune with your body and what it needs, what it doesn't need, and after a while you'll start to recognize, you know, what things are actually helping you and what things are not.
It brings up another question I had is that, you know, why do I have cravings for certain things? I mean, even good food.
Mm-hmm.
And if I go 3 days without peanut butter, I have a craving for natural peanut butter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've never had a craving for kale.
Yeah. Yep.
Well,
I probably
So-
should, but I don't.
Yeah, and most of the things that are just in their natural state, most people don't have cravings for. No one has cravings for, like, you know, kale or, you know, sometimes for fruit, you know, people will be like, yeah, you know, I would like some grapes, or I'd like, you know, but it's not that deep craving that you have for certain things that are more processed. The human body is designed to survive. Okay, so, you know, there's people who are Eskimos that live where, you know, I would die, even if you gave me all the resources that I need, just with how cold it is up in Alaska and, you know, British Columbia and stuff like that. There's people who live there and they thrive. And then there's people who live in the deserts of Africa, okay, and they live there, and I would die there, and they thrive. Okay, so the human body is designed to survive, but there's certain basic things that the body needs a lot of in order to survive. And the three biggest things that the body needs is fat, sugar, and salt. Okay, those are the big macronutrients, because fat and sugar give you the most calories. Okay, when people used to farm in this country by hand, you know how the daily recommended calorie allowances, you know, in the back of packages it says 2,000 calories a day. If you farmed by hand, you would burn 10 to 12,000 calories a day. Okay, you're pushing the plow, you're up at 4 in the morning, you're moving all the time. You ate as much as you could to actually keep those muscles going. Okay, and fat has a lot of calories. Okay, so you have all these pioneers and stuff like that, and they had all these fried stuff. That was the only way to get enough calories into their system to where they could survive. Okay, but they burned it off. That's the thing, is they burned it off. Okay, but that's the thing, is if the body is not getting these major things, the energy that it needs with the calories, with the sugar, with the fat, if it's not getting the electrolytes, and the primary electrolyte in the body's system is sodium. Okay, if it's not getting that, then everything else shuts down, and then it doesn't matter if you're getting your fancy micronutrients. Okay, so the body is geared to survive. So that's the things that the body is most attuned to getting to. And food companies know this. Yes, sir.
So what you're saying is a bag of potato chips and TV don't work.
Well, it depends on your goals. And that's where the justification part comes in. You know, the human brain is so good at justifying anything. You know, but that's the thing, is there's more food research. I think it's like 11 or 12 times more food research in terms of money done by food and drug companies than is actually done by our National Institutes of Health. Okay, so they know, they've figured out what things the human brain actually craves, and they put it into their foods. If you make a pot of, pasta and, pasta sauce, spaghetti and all of that, you make that at home, okay, versus the pasta that you get at like Olive Garden or something else. There's a lot more fat and sugar in that pasta sauce at restaurants, and a lot more salt than the stuff that you would normally do at home. Because they know, the restaurants know, and food companies know, is that these three things, if you put at least 2 of those in higher amounts, at least 2, but usually they put all 3. And why does pasta sauce have a bunch of sugar? You'll put a little bit to kind of cut the acidity out, but they use a lot more sugar than you would normally use. Why did you put a bunch of sugar?
Because I used to, I had a friend who was Italian. She taught me how to cook Italian food.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we used 1 teaspoon of brown sugar in the pasta sauce. That's all you needed to cut it in.
Yeah.
The acidity.
But it's capitalism. They're there to sell your product. So the way you fix that is by actually empowering the people who are paying for the product, instead of just making the government make more rules on what they can or can't do, and restricting freedoms that way. The other option is learn about it, educate yourself on it, and actually, vote with your money and stuff. But that's the thing, is there's so much food research that's been done. Coca-Cola used to use cocaine in their Coke. And that's where you got Coca-Cola. The Coke part of Coca-Cola is actually cocaine. They figured out that if you addict people to it, then you sell a whole bunch more product. It's so.
That's like another thing they used to do is they used to what was it I think it was heroin that they prescribed heroin to in the 1800s and stuff like that. It was prescribed, and it's like, that's ridiculous. But I mean, that was before they knew. Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of different things. You could buy cyanide and arsenic and all this other stuff from like regular, pharmacies and stuff like that's extremely toxic. Mercury. They would use mercury in a whole bunch of different medications. So there was a lot of stuff that they didn't know that they just kind of threw together. But there's the marketing though has gotten a lot more sophisticated, especially in the last 50 years. So people need to be careful about that, because they've figured out what actually attracts people. Okay, whether it's food or music or clothes or whatever it is. Okay, so yeah, it's important to be attuned to that. Yes.
Over the years, well, like my brother that passed away, he struggled with his weight and stuff, but this is something that I learned, like our stomach, when we eat, our stomach, like if we eat too much, it stretches. And then like our bodies are like stores more fat and stuff, because we don't know when, our stomach don't know when we're going to get that next meal. So I've learned, like if you even eat like every couple hours, then you don't get hungry, and then your stomach will shrink, and then you can't eat as much.
Yeah, so there's lots of different techniques that you can use, and a lot of that is stuff that you have to figure out with your body and all of that. Because the human body, it's almost like, and someone in medical school told me this, it's like, imagine when you became 16 or 18, whenever you got your driver's license, you got to go to a parking lot of a big car dealership, and you got to pick whichever car you want. Okay, whether it's, super fancy SUV or a sports car or a truck or whatever else, with a caveat that you keep this vehicle for the rest of your life, and once the vehicle stops, that's the end of you too. Okay, but the interesting thing about each of these vehicles is that they can actually change. Okay, so a sports car, if you're driving on more rough road, the shocks start changing. Okay, a big SUV, a big Jeep, and you're just driving it on pavement, it actually starts becoming more aerodynamic. it actually will change. And that's what the human body is. The human body is like this amazing vehicle, you know, and there's different types. There's some people that have more muscle, some people that are taller, some people that are shorter, but within a certain range, your body will adapt to whatever environment you're in to keep you alive. Okay, so yeah, if you know, and that's what they've noticed is there's a lot of the one of the things that they found is, for example, in Mexico and the Southwest, the Mexicans in that area, the northern and the northwestern Mexicans have a higher propensity for obesity than the southeastern Mexicans. And they're like, oh, they're all Mexicans. No, they're different, because the people in the northern part, they had a whole lot more famine and dry weather and stuff like that. So when they had food, their body had to be able to store it for when they didn't have as much food. Okay, so even though they're one country, the propensity just genetically is very different. Okay, because the body learned to adapt to you know, to their environment. Okay, and now, because there's so much food, they're having more problems with obesity than the southeastern Mexicans are. Okay, so that's the thing though, is actually you can Google, I forget which years it was, but the female food eating championship person is like, I think like a 5'2" Asian girl that's like 100 pounds. She's the female like hot dog eating champion. Okay, and the way she did it, she just faced it like a regular sport, where she trained her stomach and ate a certain way to actually stretch it. So she's not actually obese, she just actually ate in a certain way to stretch her stomach to the point where she actually became like, you know, hot dog eating champion. Okay, and yeah, you can Google it, and she's a little lady. Okay. So you can train your gut to do a whole bunch of things. You can train your body, but that's the empowering thing though, is even if you've done stuff bad for a really long time, you can undo a lot of that. You know, you won't, you know, eating right and doing everything right won't make you a teenager again, right? But there's a lot of that you'll actually start changing for the better. Your body will always change for the better if you start doing things, start heading in the right direction. Yes, Ms. Cheryl, and then Larry.
There, about the timing of your eating. You know, I was originally taught that you shouldn't eat too late at night because it causes more obesity. And then there's some diets that are successful where you eat every 2 hours, some where you fast. I don't know, but then that sends your body into starvation mode, which can be a problem. Is there anything you have to share about those two competing?
How long do you want to be here? Yeah.
Short, pithy answer.
That's right.
Was that?
Short, pithy answer.
Short, pithy answer. Do what works for you. So there's so many different theories, but that also goes into how each person's body is slightly different. There's certain rules of thumb. You don't want to eat late at night, because when you sleep, your metabolism actually slows down. Okay, so if you've got a whole bunch of food, metabolism is just your body burning off whatever you're eating. Okay, so if you slow that down, you know, it's like a fire. You're decreasing the fire, but you're still stuffing it full of logs. Okay, you're going to have more logs there in the morning, right? Because it didn't burn off. So if you're eating real late at night and then you go to sleep, your metabolism goes down, and then your body says, well, we're not going to burn that. We'll just store it for later, and then it shoves all those calories into the fat cells. Okay, so that's one of the rules of thumb, is ideally you want to not eat at least 2 to 4 hours before you go to bed. Okay, because it takes about 4 hours for your body to digest a meal, so you want your meal to be digested by the time you actually slow down your metabolism.
Reading labels, does that help?
To a point, yes. The labels are there to a point. The manufacturers have learned to game a lot of it, but really what it does is it kind of just gives you an idea of what you're actually buying. Okay.
And another thing too, I mean, how many of you, I mean, you go to read a label
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, what the heck is this?
Yep.
And you have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, should I really be eating this if I don't know what's in it?
Yeah. Yeah, so one of the things that can help is just looking at the serving size and how many calories you're actually getting. Okay, because if it's 1 cup and you're getting 500 calories versus 2 cups is 150 calories, okay, you're getting, you kind of have a better idea. And then another rule of thumb is to actually read the ingredients, and if there's a whole bunch of weird scientific words that you can't really pronounce, that means it's been messed with a whole lot. Okay, so the more weird scientific words it has, the more you need to stay away from it. Okay, so those are kind of the rules of thumb. And then, there's all the different things. There's a trans fat percentage, and there's the sugar versus the complete carb percentage. And, there's all these different things. And honestly, I think part of that is there to kind of mess with just regular people to where they just stop caring about it. And I think part of it is, anyway, I have my other theories on that. But yeah, anyway, I've overshot by about 15 minutes. So I think they were going to do different things like blood pressure, BMI, if anyone's interested. I'm happy to stay for longer, but I don't want to keep anyone here that needs to go. But yeah, thank you so much for coming to this meeting. And the next one is the 4th Sunday of, what is it, the 23rd, 30th? I don't know which day it is. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And if you have any other questions, I'm happy to keep talking.
23rd.
The what? 23rd? Yes, the 23rd. Okay. 23rd. That's the 4th Sunday of April?
Let's give them a hand.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, is there anything else? Are you done with the Q&A?
Yeah, I was gonna do this, but I'll do that next time.
Okay.
I think what I'll do next time, just because there's a lot of questions about nutrition, and nobody really asked about that here, but I know that a lot of people, one of the things they talk about is, well, if I eat a whole bunch of vegetables and fruit, where do I get my protein from? And that's one question. Or, oh, do I get enough nutrients? Do I get enough calcium if I cut out the milk and the cheese and all of that stuff? So there's other questions. So I call it the whatabouts of nutrition. What about this? What about that? So I was thinking I can do that, then at least answer some of those questions for people. And if you have any other questions about nutrition, definitely bring them next time. All right.
So I wanted to let you guys know, remind you again to invite your friends. We'll be going over a variety. There's so many different health topics. And if you're interested in health, your own health, or someone you're concerned about, this would be a great place. You can see Dr. Borowski's real good one to answer questions and talk with about things. He's very knowledgeable. We really appreciate that. And also, every time we have just a kind of a light screening set up back here. I think we have blood pressure. You can get your blood pressure checked. You can get your BMI checked, which is your body mass index. That lets you know. We have the scale to let you can see on there if you're in the high end, that's a weight issue. Then we have blood sugar. We're raising blood sugar. We're doing some of that with Fingersit. And yes, if any of you guys have asthma, we're having peak airflow, which is an indicator of how much air you're able to get out at a certain time. What else do we have? I think that's it. So anyway, we'll set up some different screenings each time, and it's all free. You're welcome to stop by, and we'll be glad to give you some help with that if you'd like, and we can write it down for you so you can take it with you. So we thank you guys for coming very much.
Yes.
We're going to close our meeting and then just mingle. You can talk with any of us or get your your screen time if you'd like to.
Did you make that lentil soup?
Yeah, from my daughter-in-law's recipe that I gave you,
It was really good.
yeah, I like it.
You can do a lot with lentils, guys. My wife did a pot of lentil stew we ate all week. Every lunch we had a pot of stew. It was excellent. She did different things. She put coconut milk in it, chip, and put good cayenne pepper, make it
All
hot.
different kinds of
You
things.
can do
you can
all
with it,
kinds of
yeah.
stuff to it. And this was just very simple and very tasty.
Yes.
Lord, it's just marvelous how you made the body. The doctor said the temple, and we have to live in it.